So we're live. Hey, how y'all doing? I can't sleep. I've been up since about 2:30ish in the morning. I've got a massive migraine and physical therapy later in the day, so that's going to be fun. But I said that if I cannot sleep, pardon me, that if I cannot sleep, I would read. So that is what I'm going to do. Give me a moment to let the Discord know. Streaming Death doesn't bargain by Carolyn, I think it is. Kenyon. That's what we're gonna read. And Sandra, hey, yeah, your name does appear the same, by the way, on here. Slightly different, but no, I on my end it shows correctly. So we're gonna go in. As mentioned, I got a giant migraine. I'm gonna fix my lighting a little bit with my hat, and we're gonna read. And if you guys want me to change up my voice, just let me know. So we are at the prologue. Death doesn't bargain. When I said I'd give you Helllock Soul... Let me try that again. When I said I'd give you any Helllock Soul to claim for the Sea Witch's crew, I'm thinking I should have seriously set some limitations. Sanity being a more obvious one. And one that should have gone without saying. That comment was met with a stoic glare from the demon who showed about as much emotion as Devil Bane did remorse for all the lives he'd ruthlessly taken while he'd worn the flesh of a human man. I'd like to point out it has been a while since I've read to anyone but my kids, and I do not need to worry about pronouncing things correctly when I'm reading to them. So, yeah, let's go back to what we were doing. We left off at he'd ruthlessly taken while he restart that sentence. That comment was met with a stoic glare from the demon who showed about as much emotion as Devil Bane did remorse for all the lives he'd ruthlessly taken while he'd worn the flesh of a human man. I've agreed to take on all the souls of the damned you suggested without complaint or hesitation. Lydius? If someone knows how to pronounce that name, it's Leucious. Let me know. I feel like there should be... Hold on. Most books, if they've got weird names in them, will have... Nope. Okay, I'm screwed. Lucius. Lucius? No, okay, alright, let's redo that. I've agreed to take on all the souls of the damned that you suggested without complaint or hesitation, Lucius. Lucius. Now I want the American for me crew. Oh! I was giving him I was way off on that accent. For me crew. he's a pirate! For me crew. Release him from this infernal realm. Oh wow, apparently I'm gonna go weird accent. Release him from this infernal realm, or I'm staying right where I am, and you can face Vine and her army without me. Let's see how far you get on resealing those gates and holding back the dam then, eh? Irritated and furious, almost beyond rational thought over Daryl's insistence on using a name he'd hated and had abandoned using centuries ago, Thorn dragged his forefinger along his bottom lip while he struggled with the sudden urge to gut the difficult warrior before him. Not that it would matter. Wouldn't kill him. Just piss him off and cause him to return the jester. Don DeLuigi of the Dumalani had ever been the single most aggravating warlord to wield a sword against him. Sadly, he had also been the most successful, which was why Thorn was here to make this regrettable bargain. He needed the dark, deadly bastard. And the Devil's Bane, as he... Is it supposed to be Devils? It's Devyls. That looks like Devils to me. By the way, this is book club, which means I'm going to interrupt myself constantly. uh, he needed the dark, deadly bastard, and the devil's bane, as he called himself these days, knew it. And said evil, satisfied red gleam in demonic eyes as he dared him into this with a smirking sneer. He had Thorn by the figurative bullocks. As much as it pained him to admit it, he couldn't defeat Vine and her army without Devil's help. For that matter, why is there an F in chat? Why is there an F in chat? I noticed my voice just dropped. Was that why? Devel was the sole reason that particular breed of demons' richness? Richness? I have honestly not seen that word before. That's saying something. Oh, it's an Urban Dictionary word. No wonder I didn't recognize it. Why? Authors be using all kinds of stuff now. It's not a dictionary word. It's an Urban Dictionary. Bittris. So it's bitch-tris is what it is. And the word means a coworker similar to a work wife who bitches incessantly about your habits, but does not sleep with you. Similar in nature and function to a regular bitch, however, is differentiated because the bittress is even more of a bitch than the main regular bitch. I love that. That that is so amazing. Oh, that I love that. Oh, I've got to use that in a video. That is going. I'm setting that to the side. Oh my god. I've got to find a way to call somebody a bittress in a video. Oh, things we learn. Okay, where were we? Daryl was the sole reason that particular breed of demon bittress had ever been trapped behind the gates to begin with. And that incredible feat, that bastard had managed after his death, which said it all about how crafty. Which said it all about how crafty and resourceful a Beastbane was. Does anyone else feel that that sentence is off? Which said all about how it shouldn't have the word it there. Like it's there. I'm not lying. Like right there. Which said it all about. It would read better, which said all about how crafty and resourceful a Beastbane was. But by putting the word it in there, it kind of throws it off. Fantasy spellings are drivel. Thank you, by the way, me for commenting that. So when the live stream should have replay on the chats. Back to where we were. Where were we? Which said all about how crafty and resourceful a Beastbane was. Still, Thorn turned his attention to the pit where Keldar Dupree. Why is like every fucking paragraph a new difficult name? Dupree was engaged. Thorn turned his attention to the pit where Keldar Dupree was engaged in an impressive brawl against the worst of I can pronounce this name in my head. Mephistopheles. Mephistoapothe. People are gonna think I'm an idiot. That is what people are going to think. They're like, "Oh, he can't pronounce squat." I mentioned this before. I can understand everything I read, but pronouncing it or knowing how to spell it is an entirely different skill set. Mephistophilus? I'm just going to go to how to pronounce. Mephistopheles. Mephistopheles. Ah. Mephistopheles. Ha 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 ha. See, this is why we Google things. Yeah, a surprising amount of books have little to no apparent editing. Yeah, sadly. See, this is great. I love this. This is a true, like, we get to sit here, we read together, we get to talk about it. We're like, eh. Anyways, Mephistopheles, pets. Ha ha. So Thorn turned his attention to the pet where Keldor Dupree was engaged in an impressive brawl against the worst of Mephistopheles' pets. Using barbed and fiery whips, they were beating the Mirakin, I think it's Mirakin, warrior down with a slick glee. And still, Keldor fought them with everything he had. He met every bloody lash and blow. I feel like that could be edited because we got another "and" right after it. So it goes, he met every bloody lash and blow with a defiant curse as he psychologically begged them for more and goaded them to hit him even harder. That entire, like, little paragraph, or, like, that's one full sentence. That sentence could be edited a little bit better. I am liking this. The level of reading this is nice and easy. Depending on what's in here, my kiddos may be able to read it. He met every bloody lash blow. Okay. Keldar even questioned their parentage, as if any demon here had a clue as to who or what had any demon here had a clue as to who or what had fathered them on their whore of a mother. It is devils. Okay. There was a macabre beauty to Keldar's stubborn rebellion, a warrior's code that few could really understand unless they were one of them. That innate need to give as good as he got, a refusal to surrender no matter the odds or pain. Indeed, the harder the blow, the more determined the resolve. With my shield or upon it, it was a warrior's code Thorn knew well. One he lived by himself, as he'd been raised up on it by his own merciless relatives. No damned demon kills me and live. If he had to come back from hell itself for vengeance and satisfaction, he would have their throats as payment. Better to die on his feet with blood on his fists than on his knees with piss in his drawers. And he would go out choking on the flesh of his enemies, not on his own bile. Can we appreciate that little paragraph? That is amazingly written right there. I really like that. That was amazing. He understood both those demons spawned men implicitly. They were like-minded beasts, even if they had once fought on opposite sides of a most bitter war for the world. Ironic, now that they were allies, how the world changes. Resigning himself to this inevitable nightmare he was sure to regret, he met Bane's dark glower. Is he to be your first mate, then? Devil laughed out loud, a rare sound for him, and then he cut it short as he realized that Thorn had been serious. We're gonna do the laugh. I'm insane. Or rather suicidal most days, not stupid. Big difference, that. Perhaps, but oftentimes 'tis a fine line that divides the three. Again, the accent. If I'm reading something, I don't out loud, like, I seem to go right into the accent. I'll try to avoid that. Especially because I don't hold the accent for the same character. Perhaps oftentimes 'tis a fine line that divides the three. I disagree. It takes a great deal of intelligence to run insanity and pull it back from death before he takes you. You've got to know right where the line is at all times. Only the most observant and wisest among us can toe it in good measure and dance its tune without losing the beat o'er your head. Nay, they are not lovers or even cousins. Rather, they are strangers and should ever remain so if you value your limbs at all. Really like that line. I'm finding a lot that I'm going to be like, I wonder if I can find a way to fit this in a video. Because that was amazing. Scan the text on that later and figure out a way to change it up to fit my character a little bit. Where were we? Or your limbs at all. And Dew was always good at keeping himself intact, as well as his men and army. Of all the warlords, gods, and demons Thorn had battled over the centuries, none had been more skillful or cunning than the beast at his side. Had Dew's wife not cut his throat and split his gullet, he'd have taken the world, and they had been paying homage to this bastard sword. Which was exactly what had brought them here today. You think glower is supposed to rhyme with flower? Probably, but there's no flower in that sentence. So, I don't know. Oh, neck is killing me. Yeah. Here it is. He needed devils. Is this devil? Is the V like? Can you hear it, or is it devil? Like, is it like devil? It's a spelled weird, or is it devel? Devyl. He needed Devel's extreme form of fighting to face madness. It took madness. Oh, you mean pronunciation? Like scowl? Yeah. I get that, but glower, it's pretty sure it's glower. Pretty sure I pronounced it correctly. Let's look it up. Lowe. Glower. Oh, glower. So flower, glower. Okay, I get you. Glower. So let's reread that then. Where were we? Where was that? I just read that. I got too much of a headache to like scroll back too quickly right now. Like right in the back of my neck too. Here it is. Resigning himself to this inevitable nightmare, he was sure to regret. He met Bane's dark glower. I think scowl would have been better there. I think that would have been preferred. Sandra, I think it's just spelled weird, but pronounced devil. All right, I'm gonna go with devil. Continuing forward, then. All right, back to where we were. He needed devil's extreme form of fighting to face madness. It took madness. Now that makes more sense, but the way they have it, the period. He needed devil's extreme form of fighting. Period. To face madness. It took madness. Period. I feel like that could be written just a little bit better. And I think scowl. No, I still think scowl would have been better in that area, but like that's just personal. Evil to combat evil. Seems to be a lot of redundantness written in this small prologue here. And no one understood Vine's insanity or war plans better than Devil did. If the world was to be saved this go around, their only hope lay in the hands of this demon and his band of. Thorn cringed at the thought of the dead men Bane had assembled to fight for the world and save it. May the gods help us all. Could have something written there to make an easier transition between his band of and there's a ... and then Thorn cringed at the thought, because that is such a switch in the way you're reading and the way it's said and everything that some small transition would have been nice. Lay in the hands of this demon and his band of. Cringing at the thought, Thorn, cringing at the thought about dead men Bane had assembled to fight. Thorn cringes at the thought. I think cringes. I think if you just change the word cringe to cringes, if the world was to be saved this go around, their only hope lay in the hands of this demon and his band of. Thorn cringes at the thought of the dead men Bane had assembled to fight for the world and save it. and then may the gods help us all. I think that would have been better. No, it's not. This is not the author's first book. In fact, this is book number like 30. Like it goes the Dark Hunter series, and then they write Deadman's Cross. So like they have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 16, 17. Yeah, over like they like it's pretty far in there. I agree. I think a better editor in this case, because there's just some clunkiness to this, and it's still got some incredibly well written parts, and it's interesting. But there's definitely some parts that could just be fixed up a little bit. Let's continue on though. May the gods help us all. This had disaster written all over it. He was about to sign them up for a front row seat at the apocalypse. Relegated to his part in this disaster, Thorn gave him a curt nod. Let me see for the bargain. Devil turned his attention back to the fight as Thorn left his side to negotiate for Kaldur's. American was badly dehydrated, no doubt part of his torture. As a mermaid, Kaldor needed water much more than a regular human or any other species. Honestly, could have skipped that. Could have told us the mermaid a little bit later on in. But I understand why putting it there is important, because this is supposed to be read. Here's the thing: if each book in a series is meant to be a standalone book, you're gonna start getting some clunkiness because you have to explain everything. Like one of the issues that we have with our series, and we've started to just accept, is we can either film it as standalones, and each time we have to explain something and waste a few precious seconds, which when you're making videos underneath a minute to a minute 30, those few seconds you can put a ton of content into, right? Or we can accept the fact that people might not understand and just continue the story. Now, we have done that, and because of that, we have created some really good stories. For example, this being the third, was it the second or third book in the... This is supposed to be the second book in the Deadman's Cross series that Sherilyn did. And I believe these characters are all interchangeable in their universe. I'll be honest. If this was written instead of a standalone, but as a continuation, this would be much better. Yeah, sometimes they get a contract and start phoning it in. They should treat each book like an anthology show. I don't know. This is the first time I'm reading this author. I really think if I read the books, one of their first books, The Dark Hunters, in the order, like get the night, it's called Night Pleasures, Night Embrace. If I think I got a couple of the first ones, we'd be able to really judge it. But jumping into the middle like this and seeing how clunky it is, does not bode well for me. It's not that it's bad, it's just I'm going to be picky at certain things, right? Let's continue on. Kaldor needed water much more than a regular human or any other species did, and it appeared as if he had been without any for weeks now. Point of fact, his skin was peeling back from his very bones, something that had to be excruciating. See, right here, if you took out Kaldor, if you took out the mermaid part and placed it at the end, so let's redo this. The American was badly dehydrated, no doubt part of his torture. Kaldor needed water much more than a regular human or any other species, and it appeared as if he had been without any for weeks now. Point of fact, his skin was peeling back from his very bones, something that had to be excruciating for a mermaid. That right there, changing that sentence from as a mermaid to because he's a mermaid, and essentially something that it had to be excruciating for a mermaid, you get that curious effect of like, why? And then you see for a mermaid and you're like, oh, snap. Right? So it just changes the dynamic a lot. I did not used to critique books like this. This is interesting. I like this. I meant authors, but yeah, it needs better editing. Yeah. Yet it slowed him down not at all. Nothing ever had, and that was one of the things Devil respected most about the much younger warrior. He was a creature to be reckoned with in feet. Captain, he glanced over his shoulder at the tiny, powerful West African shaman they had picked up earlier. Her dark skin was flawless and made her amber eyes practically glow. Oh. Hmm. You might notice the reason why I did that. There's an issue with the way media portrays POCs sometimes, and sometimes, in this case, it's like, oh, it's so beautiful, lightning, everything like that. There's no problem with that in some contexts, but it's overused to the point that the POC community, and this is what I've been told, not, I'm pale as can be, that many of them don't like it. They would like to see a more normalized description of them versus her dark skin was flawless and made her amber eyes practically glow. That is like so common that it became this thing of they have to try to live up to this person now. What do you mean as? You mean as a mermaid? Well, I'm saying is like as a mermaid at the start of this, um, instead of having as a mermaid at the beginning, replace the mermaid part to the end. So it still has the same effect, but instead you are going from here. Let me read it all the way. Devil turned his attention back to the fight as Thorn left his side to negotiate for Caldor's soul. The American was badly dehydrated, no doubt part of his torture. Caldor needed water much more than a regular human or any other species did, and it appeared as he had been without any and it appeared as if he had been without any for weeks now. That's a little clunky right there now that I'm reading. Point of fact, his skin was peeling back from his very bones, something that had to be excruciating for a mermaid. We go and we get curious as to why is he needing this so much, and then we find out in 3 words. We find out in 3 words before, and then we read it, it feels clunky and like you don't need to continue to explain it. Oh, a mermaid. Immediately you go, oh, it needs water. This explains it. You don't need it. It becomes redundant. There's a difference between, oh, you explained it, now it's redundant, I'm bored, let me move on, versus why? Why does he need water? Oh my god, he was a mermaid this whole time? Do you see what I mean? Back to what we were. Captain, African shaman, practically glow. Okay, there we go. Though she was currently dressed in rags, she carried herself with the presence of a noble queen and he gave her the due of one. We need people to be treated like people. And that means seeing both the beauty and the ugly in people, regardless of who they are. But doing that in a way that doesn't wind up making you the target of hate is a challenge. Because like dressed in rags and everything, honestly, the skin wouldn't be glowing flawless. But what it could be, her dark skin, dirty and matte and covered in bruises or whatever you might want to say. Her amber eyes glowing. Though she was currently dressed in rags and as filthy as can be, she carried herself with the presence of a noble queen, and he gave her the due of one. You see how much that changes the dynamic? You still say and let them know that this person is of African descent, and the eyes glow, and they're carrying themselves as a queen. But the moment you mention that they're dressed in rags and they're supposed to be like dirty and everything, but you let their skin is glowing. Yeah, I agree. Also, such bad autonomy. Skin doesn't usually attach directly to bones in humans. Yeah. Belmonte. He was a creature of many secrets, but he saw her heart as clearly as he saw the Americans. She was a woman to be reckoned with and admired, if not always trusted. Here's a question. If this person is somebody that you know and trust, why are they still in any type of rag clothing? Even in hell, like, is it rags because of? Like, I guess we'll find out. Let's continue reading. Maybe it's rags because they were just in a fight. If you're gonna describe this character as like a noble queen, then put him in rags. And it's all supposed to be in hell. What is it, Lady Belle? She jerked her chin toward Caldor. Why that one? You're questioning me. She rubbed her hands over her arms. The gesture rattled with the multitude of silver bangles that lined both her wrists. Bet you dollars to donut. It's gonna sound really, really horrible. But I get the idea. I know what Cheryl looks like. Yep. This is a problem in a lot of books. It's not like situated to just one thing. I like reading things by POC creators. Specifically because you get a diverse cast that tends to be described like normal people versus this. They're wearing rags, but oh hey, they're wearing high-end jewelry on top of this. Their skin is glowing, but at the same time, they're in hell and they probably haven't washed themselves forever and a half. It's nitpicky, I know, um, but it changes the dynamic of how you read things, and I feel like they could have. Belmonte, yeah, Bell. They named him Bell. That's another thing. It's a pirate name, 100%. It feels like a pirate's name. This is definitely reading as a pirate book type of thing. Um, and that's not like that wouldn't be uncommon back then. There were a lot of bells, specifically as a way to protect themselves should they ever decide to leave the crew. They could blend into the background. Uh, History, by the way, love it. Make sure you read beyond what your history teacher. She jerked her chin toward Calder. Why that one? You're questioning me? She rubbed her hands over her arms, the gesture rattling the multitude of silver bangles that lined both her wrists. Um, he's a deep darkness in his heart, not like the others you've chosen thus far. Nay, he was nothing like the others. Caldor had always been unto him, and that is why a devil wanted him as part of their crew. So you think I should leave him to rot and bleed here? Bell bit her lip and scowled. Most would say you, me, Captain. That I not be worth a chance for salvation given what I've all done. So this person's part of the crew and still wearing rags? Really? I'm me. If you want to send me a book recommendation on Discord, or send me a book, you can. I should probably create the PO box for here, shouldn't I? Give me a second. We're gonna log into a different area here. want to create a command finally. I'm going to slowly create the commands is what I'm going to do as we need them. Yes, wow, I want to do the things I need to do here. I'm going to go to CloudBot. Turn it on. Commands. There. Added the command so that you can look at it and send mail if you want. That is a picture on the link. What is a picture on the link? John, you'll have to be more specific. But like, if you Google what Sherilyn looks like, I hate to say it, but it's exactly what I thought they would look like. Really is horrible to say it, but it was just, if I can read something and like think I know what you look like and you turn out to look exactly like that, stereotyping is what it is, and I hate the fact that my brain defaults to that at all. But getting it right makes it feel so much worse. Like, oh shit, actually what the person looks like. Oh well, I feel worse now. Not hating on the author. Let me make this correct. Let me say this. Just because a book feels a little bit clunky doesn't mean it's not enjoyable. But we're part of this is being a book club. It's like we're gonna like figure things out. You shouldn't be wearing rags. Are you one of them? Well, Belle bit her lip and scowled. Most would say you would have left me, Captain. That I not be worth a chance for salvation, given what I have all done. Are you one of them? She glanced around the fiery pits where so many were being ruthlessly tortured. Consider her answer carefully before she stared at the new mark Thorn had placed on their wrist. When he pulled each of them from similar hellholes, made their act. This is horrible because this says that it's been a while, and they're still wearing this stuff. They're just like, fuck it, let's keep wearing the clothes that we are wearing instead of getting something that might be a little bit better and protect us a little bit more. A bargain sealed in blood and marked with their dead man's brand. A ribbon with a skull in its center. A unique brand designating them as part of Thorn's Hellchaser army, and temporarily kept their rotted souls in the mortal realm so they could fight for a chance to save their own condemned souls from the damnation they earned while this was the only chance most of them would ever have to spare themselves infernal torture and damnation. Belle shook her head. I'm too grateful for your mercy and second chance when I would never betray you. And that was why he agreed with Thorn to spare her soul. She saw more than the others, deeper. Nothing and no one could hide from her sage's seer's sight. Wait a minute, you just described Marilyn as somebody who knew more and could see more. Like, there's different words and they still mean the same thing, but like, anyone else's fair game then? One corner of her mouth lifted ever so subtly, letting him know that he'd been correct in surmising her character. Nothing escapes your notice, does it? He glanced back at the American as he laid low one of the fiercest of the demons. With the hellborn growl of glee, Keldor ripped out the heart of the beast in such a manner that it caused three of them to shrink back in a sudden fear of him. No easy feat that, to cow the fearless and set them in their. And it said all about Keldor's skills and why Devil wanted him. Fight the damned and hold them back from the world of men. You needed somebody who didn't flinch at their approach, someone who had nothing to lose. Are they seriously having this type of discussion? Why somebody is like over there fighting? They're not like fighting all together. They're just like, oh, look at this guy. He's out here doing this. I'm just gonna sit here and watch him. Like, I get it. It sets the scene a little bit of how strong these characters are. But at the same time, it's cliche, like horribly cliche. And it feels as if they're separating themselves, even though they're supposed to be a crew. Hate to say it, but this is where uh, One Piece kind of like excels. Like, if somebody's set back, they make note of it, and like, why are you just standing there? Why don't you help your captain? The guy's like, he doesn't need no help. Such a simple thing to add in there, and it resets the scene of how you're viewing it. More than that, Devil had once known the man's father, a fierce, nasty bastard. Really? Unstoppable, untamable, filled with such rage that he destroyed an entire population and cost thousands their lives. Why would you have this man as part of your crew? He wondered if Keldor's mother had ever shared that story with her son. For that was the thing of the Americans. You never really knew where you stood with them. They would lure you in, make you comfortable, and they'd serve you up on your own intestines, while smiling in your face. He respected that about them, and it was what had caused Keldor to be damned here. Sure, it wasn't his act of genocide. The mother who had raised and nurtured him had murdered him when he had gone to her for comfort after the death of his younger brother. Why would he be dead? Aye, they were all a treacherous and bloodthirsty lot. It ran deep in their bloodline, part of their genetic stock. Oh, I hate that. I despise that writing part. Ooh. You. Hmm. Ooh, that's telling. That's really telling. You can bank your very death upon it, and Devil would have it no other way. Ah. I started reading things lately. That's the end of the prologue, by the way. I started reading things in a different way, um, because people start pointing things out, right? So, like, how do you tell what a person's thinking by what they're writing? Are they going to try to be inclusive and show the world as what it really is? Are they going to have their own skewed viewpoint of what a world is, no matter how fantasy like it may be? And are they going to include it? Take J.K. Rowling, for example. A lot of her writing has been pointed out to be anti Semitic, right? I might have pronounced that wrong. But if you turn around and take that same line of thinking, this author created a race of people who are genetically predisposed to violence and hate. In our society right now, what does that make you think of? And then they turned around and also described a POC character of the female variety in a very specific way, and then continued this on. I'm really hoping that this isn't a theme throughout the book, because I won't finish it. I straight up won't. Because no reason to have that type of thing in there. And now this could also be that this character thinks like that. So that's one of the things, like, if I don't find out that this character is simply in that line of thinking, that's an issue, right? If that's present in multiple characters throughout the book, it just shows in their writing at that point. That was just a prologue. There's some good bits about this, and it sounds interesting. We've got some pages here for maps. Area here. Um, but currently, just the prologue. That's just me assuming. I don't like to assume. We're going to continue reading. We're going to give the benefit of the doubt. But if we notice a trend, we're going to end. And that's just because that's my preference. Right? I can no longer read books the way my kids can read them, where they don't think of this stuff. They just enjoy the fantasy. Let's continue forward. Chapter 1. North Bammy 1717. Welcome to hell, Mr. Death. Heath, William corrected, habitually, knowing his dark and deadly captain couldn't care less how to properly pronounce his name. Cankerous Tostilin did it on a purpose. Is that a word? Is purpose a word, or is that just a typo? Did it, I think it's supposed to be on purpose, as he lived to rankle everyone around him, especially his crew. Proof to that point came as an amused sharp glint in the depths of Bane's demonically red eyes. Proof to the point came as an amused sharp glint in the depth of Bane's demonic red eyes. Instead of demonically, it should have just been demonic. Even so, and ever reckless in the face of imminent threat, Will cocked a brow at the aptly named Devil Bane, and his screwy sense of humor as they approached a dingy yellow building in the middle of a rain-soaked street in the Bahamas. Only as they neared civilians whom they were supposed to hide their paternal distance from did Devil dampen the hue of his eyes from red to black. Interesting way to open up a conversation there, Captain. Feel like you ought to have some sort of evil laugh to punctuate it, you know? Just for affection. With a wicked grin to make old Scratch proud, Bane clapped him on his shoulder. Not really. He jerked his bearded chin toward the Devil and Blaze tavern sign over their heads. Name of the place, Hell's Underbelly. I merely welcome you to it, since we should be at home there. Though this one seems a mite tame when compared to the one Thor dreaded. I will say, based on the world setting, I can view the way of line of thinking here, but at the same time, you can still write it in a way that would not make it seem so cringy bad. Like I said, still well written. Yeah. Thorn dredges from. It did indeed, in spite of the rough drunkard who thrown. I've got conflicting feelings about this book. That's what it translates to. It did indeed, in spite of the rough drunkard who was thrown through the doors by the two burly blokes who land sprawling at their feet. Can we decide if we're gonna be British or if we're gonna be just straight up pirates? Because the way that this writing goes, it goes from being this badass pirate lingo to like 1970s British lingo. Can we decide which one it's gonna be? Devil didn't break his stride as he casually stepped over the battered man's prone body in the dark tavern. And that's the one thing the really super old books had, because they were still within close enough to that time frame. They had like much more of a reference to how people spoke back then. Devil didn't break his stride as he casually stepped over the battered man's prone body and entered the dark tavern. Unsure of how he felt about the captain's disregard of the drunkard's plight, William skirted around the side of the unfortunate man and followed the captain in, where he was met by the sound of shrill rivalry and foul curses. Then he rethought his earlier assumption about the place, since it smelled about the same as the sulfuric pits they'd once called home. Rotten, unwashed, rotten, farting demons. I think you could have just had unwashed demons. Both disgusting in equal measure. The only difference was killing demons, unlike Didn't get you damned to hell. It got you liberated out of it. That's why they were there. Save some humans, kill some demons. Same mission, different day. Or was it different mission, same day? Here, lately, it's getting harder to tell those two parts. Maybe they were in hell again. It'd be just the kind of sinister trap Lucifer might concoct as punishment for them. Old Scratch was a treacherous blighter that way. Suddenly, Will's gut was tight enough to form a lump of coal at the thought. What do you do to poor Will now, Captain? He looks like you just gave him... Oh. What'd you do to poor Will now, Captain? He looks like you just gave him watch duty over Mr. Mears' nastiest boot. Will sat back as Cameron Jack joined their meager company. Dressed as a lad in a red linen coat and tan breeches, the lady held a quiet, respectful grace. Her dark chestnut hair was pulled back into a circumspect hue and hidden beneath a sharp black tricorn that accentuated her pretty angular features. How he'd ever mistaken her, how he'd ever mistaken her for a man he couldn't fathom nowadays. Yet the first time they'd met, he'd definitely been fooled by her boyish garb and sharp, crisp manners. Only devil had known that night in Only devil had known that night in the back room of the Port Royal Tavern. He'd blame it on the dim lighting, but then no one got anything past their captain. What kept you? Cameron passed a small parcel to him. Lady Bell told me to give this to you. He said, the one to be battered with will require it. Supposed to be bargained? B-A-R-T-E-R, battered. Do we still have people in chat, or is this thing lying to me? There was no missing guilt in her eyes as she spoke those words, and none could blame her there. Their missing crew member, Keldor Dupree, was only trapped in hell now because he swapped places to free her and her brother. Since then, they had been desperate to get him out. Having been abandoned and betrayed by their families in the world, none of them were willing to do it to each other. The dead men were their own family now, not crew or shipmate. Family, one and all. Brothers, sisters, and crazy uncles they had to keep from drinking too much on holidays and special occasions, with a tighter bond than any born of the same womb could ever achieve, and the rebirths had been no less painful. Devil took her parcel and tucked it into a leather pouch that dangled from his belt. Let's see this time we brought our brother home. William didn't speak. There was nothing to say, as he concurred with that. Yet there was this feeling in the air in his gut that he couldn't quite shake, a sense of mistrustful unease, as if somebody walked upon his grave. Perhaps that was a normal state for the likes of them. And given what unholy threats they faced on a routine basis, none could find fault there. Are we switching between people narrating like mid-chapter here? That feels weird. Gives me a headache. Or so. I may need to reread this when I don't have a headache, just to like make sure I'm reading this correctly. Perhaps, but that was a normal state for them. And given what unholy threats they faced on a routine basis, none could find fault here. Hard to relax your guard when there were devils bound, all out to steal or devour your soul, and I think it should just be bound. I'm gonna start getting a highlighter and start highlighting parts. Head, get some good head here. Big head, little head. Means I know they mean alcohol. Oh my god, out of context. Oh, that is horrible. Matters not. I've got something for every budget, mates. Just tell me what's your pleasure. Oh my god. Oh, a tankard of ale, please. Um, Stunned completely, William drew up short. It took him a second to realize the man yelling had a basket of shrunken heads. Oh no, completely different. Even I was wrong. Holy moly. William drew up short. It took him a second to realize the man yelling had a basket of shrunken heads. He was peddling to the occupants, who were basically ignoring his grisly wares. Grisly wares. I'm thinking, hey, they're talking about alcohol because it was called a head back then. Arching his brow at the grimy man, brushed rudely against him without a polite acknowledgement. Devil swept his hand over the shrunken leathery offerings. The instant he did so, their shriveled mouths opened, as did their eyes. With an echoing shriek, the man dropped the basket of heads, which began singing hymns a cappella like a bunch of Sunday Protestants. Okay, here's the thing. If they're in the 1700s, that's not a thing that would happen either. I am being really nitpicky. And ran for the door. William snorted. You're an evil bugger, Captain. Merely putting the fear of God into him, Mr. Death. He's pronouncing it Mr. Death. Mr. Death. Besides, it's what he gets for soliciting head in a public place. I'm just trying to keep the pub decent for hard-working. As if, William laughed, while Cameron let out a shriek of horror. That is, in delight, in delicate language. Well, well, a deep, sultry voice said behind. Oh, we get to do sultry. Well, well, a deep, sultry voice said beside them. I can see the rumors that your married state has mellowed you, and have been greatly exaggerated. Why you read a bit ahead before you actually read out. You're still the same rotten beast, mon cher. You've always been. As the humor died on Bane's face, a tick started in his jaw. Inyata, you old sea hag, what are you? Will blinked and then blinked again and rubbed his eyes. That had been deceived. Unless Bane was drunk and the man had never been such that Will had ever witnessed, there was nothing old or ugly about the tiny little island woman in front of them. Indeed, her indeed her caramel skin was flawless. Her braided hair intertwined with expensive beads and colorful ribbons, and though she barely reached mid-chest on him, her voluptuous body said she was certainly no girl, yet by no means was she. Fortunately, she took Bane's insult in stride. Is that any way to greet an old friend? She asked. Friends, you stabbed me. Thrice. Unabashed, she smiled as she brushed her hand over his arm in a tender gesture of affection. Well, what did you expect? Your army was destroying mine. I had to do something to distract you before you killed every last. With a rude, dismissive noise, he stepped back to make room for Cameron. And that's why you sent an innocent young girl to me. Punishment or revenge? Neither. I knew you would protect her. Half hell of a gamble given my proclivity for feasting on the hearts of innocents. Inyara inclined her head to him. Not when I knew how much you loved your sister, and I was right. Protected our Miss Cameron, and I knew you. Thank you for not disappointing me. Bane made a gruff sound in the back of his throat. So it'd be more of a you still haven't answered me question. Why are you here? To warn you. He passed an annoyed, do you see what I mean glare at William. About, he prompted when she failed to continue her sentence. And even then, Minyata waited before she answered. Kaldor knows the truth about your missing mermaid. And so does Shalama? Might be mispronouncing that. The blood drained from his face at those ominous words. Have him? Not yet, but they're trying to find him, same as you. Who's Kaldar and Shalama? William asked, baffled by the unfamiliar. It wasn't the only. Cameron didn't appear any more familiar with him. Neville ground his teeth. The deepest, darkest. They were the snake in the Garden of Eden. Death. Shrivel that goes down your spine whenever you think you're being. They are the whisper that tempts good men to the animal side of corruption, that lapse of conscience that drives humanity. Oh, fun. Sounds like our kind of people. With a grim expression on Devil's face, said that he didn't appreciate Will's sarcasm. Actually, they were once duped. He fought long and hard for their cause and killed many in their name. That took the humor right out of William's spirit. Beg pardon? Minyanin nodded. Your good captain once led his army for them. Are we still chatting? Do we still have people, or did everyone just kind of saunder off? Am I not getting live chat? Here we go. I had to refresh it. That was really weird. Let me scroll back up here and catch. Also, such bad anatomy as part of punishment in hell. If you want high quality writing, author, yeah, bad mustache men and friends. Lyrics suddenly playing in my head. That says toxicity is killing me. I love that. Yeah. On me. Yeah, that's yeah, something Chris was doing bits on sounded interesting until I looked at the original material that was worse than what you're pointing out. Don't remember the title. If you're talking about Dresden, he does a lot of Dresden content. British King of Pirates. Author using Urban Dictionary as foreign language learning app to make books attractive to young readers. The barter trade. Is that the word? It wasn't. It didn't look. It said battered, not Bart. Oh, old school form of trading. Highlighting is a great idea. Dog ear the pages. I should. I have a problem writing in books, though. Like I have a problem bending the pages. This was already bent when it arrived to me, sadly. But most of the books I read were library books, right? So I tend to, yeah, I can't read Dresden on here for a few reasons. If you've read Dresden, you know why. But there's parts of it that I told them when they bought the books for me that I was like, I don't read the kind of thing that's within the first like 3 chapters, and they're like, "What? You're an adult?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm an adult who chooses not to read highly described pages like that." It's one thing to say they do the deed, it's another to describe it in immaculate detail. Like, you do not have to describe it in immaculate detail unless it's pertinent to the story. Like, you're describing the way somebody looks, and so you slide down and you notice the scar on their leg. Something like that, right? You focus on a pivotal point, and you're describing it, and that leads to another story later on, or even during it. That I understand, but describing it because you just want to describe it and you want to attract readers to read it because they want to get off, eh. Now I have been told his later books do not have that as much, but and yes, she is very much doing it again. It is causing an issue because need our curvable quality highlighter for books that you think will come back years later. Regular ones eat the ink off pages. Ooh. I do not have high quality highlighters. I have cheap stuff. Look, some people's smut needs to be more cerebral. Yeah, I guess. But at the same time, I don't need it in the books that are recommended to me. Like, I don't care if you go, "Oh, this deed happened," and then you skim over it. But like, I went to go skim over it, and it was like 4 pages of stuff, and I was like, I'm missing stuff in between here that's actually important to the story, and I can't figure out what is and what isn't. It was horrible, and I like couldn't get past it because of it. Where were we? I forgot where we were. Oh, here it is. Your good captain once led his army for them. And what did it get me? A knife in the gullet and me. I auto-corrected. I auto-corrected the way he would speak. A knife in me gullet and me bled out. See, it would be like the moment you have the word me in there, and like it's very inconsistent, And what did it get me? A knife in me gullet, and me bled out at the feet of the bitch who betrayed me to serve them. That's how it should read, because they did a knife in me gullet. But instead, it's a knife in me gullet, and bled out at the feet of the bitch who betrayed me to serve them. Until I killed her and locked her in a special hell for it. It's like it goes from the accent and then drops it in the middle. And it throws me off. The same hell that was now breaking open and that they had hopefully sit and find back to when they killed her for trying to murder Bane's new wife, Mara. The Kerrigan Gate. I feel like this probably should have been like, is this really a standalone book? Because like I'm feeling like I should have read the first book. Sharon, not Sharon, Sandra is the one who sent me these, and I'm just asking, legitimately, should I have read the first one of this? Because like some of this reads as like it could be a standalone, and then some of it's like you probably should have read the first book. It's like it's jumping between the two. I misspelled death over on Discord. I misspelled death. Hold on, let me fix that real quick. I like this book club thing. This is really nice. The Kerrigan Gate. His eyes flared as he stepped back. Come, Lady Cameron and Mr. Death, let's see about our mission. As he started away, Benyada stopped him. Before you leave, there's something else I must tell you. The devil placed his hand high on his back baldric of 3 flintlocks. Don't know what I was trying to read. Devil placed his hand high on his back baldric of 3 flintlocks. The bulb of the flintlock. Is that really what it's called? Or it was something else? His belt. Now that makes no sense. I know what the author was going for this here. But they basically are saying devil placed his hand on the back his hand high on his black belt of 3 flintlocks. But that's not what it's supposed to be. They're saying that he put his hand on the bullocks part of the flintlocks. And that's not what that word means that they have written here. Baldric, which is Baldric, is a belt for a sword or other piece of equipment worn over one's shoulder and reaching down to the opposite side. So in this sense, they're saying that he put his hand high up here like this versus down here like this. Which, with the way it's being described, because they decided to point out that it's for his 3 flintlocks, he would have done it down here for his 3 flintlocks to relax. That's what most pirates would have done. There's no reason to put your arm here like this unless you grab it to let your arm relax. But what would really happen, and this is because like did a lot of society things and a lot of research. When you're wearing a belt like that, if you want to relax your arm and you're talking to somebody, you don't hold the belt. You don't put it up here and just hold it like this. This is like this. You would put it inside your belt and relax it. If you're trusting the person that's talking to you, you go like this. Bandolier. I agree, John. It would have been a bandolier, probably would have been a better description of it. Sandra. It is part of a 3-book arc, but she tries to write where they can be picked up and read without knowing the rest, so that does make it clunky at times. Yeah, we mentioned that, Sandra, that it can feel a bit clunky because of that, and like that's one of the reasons why me and Chris started to gear towards, hey, we're sorry, this is part of a series, you'll need to go back and watch it to understand it. Because we were losing time and having to explain it, and it started to feel clunky. So to fix our own writing, we were like, just go back and watch this. Some people do wear a small weapon. Yeah, but the thing is, like, this isn't a small weapon. The way that this is described with 3 flintlocks, place his hand high on his black baldric of 3 flintlocks. So it's high on his belt of 3 flintlocks, which is worn from your shoulder down over. Right? I had to look it up to make sure I was thinking of the same thing. Because the way this is described is that it should be like on one of the flintlocks. But the way the flintlocks would have been held on most of these things, it's me being picky. I'm just being picky. This one is just me being picky at like, oh, I have an active imagination, and this screws with the character's design now. Where were we? Nova placed his hand high on his black baldric of 3 flintlocks, high in his belt. Probably should have been like high and latched in to relax. And that is, Minyara turned toward William with a beautiful, dazzling smile. Beguiling and sweet. Without a word, she approached him slowly and reached for his belt. That right there was a perfect way to describe this person without ever mentioning like caramel color skin. They could have turned around and used something similar like this, and then they could have still given their dissent and described them without saying the very cringy caramel color skin part that a lot of POCs go, we don't really like the way you're describing the character. You could have said dark skin and then proceeded to on there without calling it a specific type of food and stuff like that. Yeah. I'm also poorly it's also poorly described, or we'd all know what it looks like. Yeah, that's true. Stunned. He didn't move, not until she reached for his daggers. I hate that I immediately know what's going to happen. Stunned, he didn't move, not until she reached for his daggers. In one fluid motion, she grabbed them, kicked him back, and spun towards Devil. As she closed the distance between them, her entire being changed from the petite Minyara into a tall, graceful, red-headed beauty. What? William gasped as he realized that this was Devil's ex-wife they had destroyed. So we changed things? Do I need to go back here? Am I reading this wrong? I think I might be reading this wrong. William gasped as he realized that this was Devil's ex-wife they had destroyed, or at least they thought they had. How was this possible? Even though the Kerrigan Gate had broken open, how could she have returned to life? Yet there was no denying that this was the very sorceress they'd fought, and she was back from her grave to take vengeance on them for killing her. Hissing, she arrested that devil. You didn't end me, you worthless bastard, but I will see you back in hell for what you've done. And I plan to send that shriveling little Mitterkin bitch there with you. We're gonna call it at chapter 1. Pinata, what the fuck? Yeah. That was a very clunky way to do a very quick turnover. So to describe it, it was like me and Chris trying to figure out a way to end a couple of our series and trying to decide, do we want to end it right off the bat? Like, say, the Samara one. We got midway through the Samara Chronicles, and we were thinking about Sam and Dean going, no, actually, let's use a newer video. Gary was about to die. I don't believe we said that on the live. But, yeah, no, we didn't say that on the live. So, I was talking about how to proceed with the Broke Vampire, and Chris was like, well, Broke Vampire isn't getting as many views. I think it's run its course. And he was thinking of having Dresden kill Gary outright because people want Gary dead. right? I was like, no, people like Gary. People like the character. What we need to do is come back and stop with the filler content and continue the story in the arc, and then set them to the side for a little while, because killing one of our own original characters is stupid when we don't have a bunch of characters to draw from. Like that would be a stupid move, realistically to do. But like it would be like if we turn around on episode 14, oh, all of a sudden he wound up in Dresden and Dresden killed him. Where is the context in between this? You're talking, this person looks, feels, acts like an entirely different person, and then within a split second, and not even like a few pages, within a paragraph, is completely fuckered. The whole thing doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Now, I'm not saying that this doesn't happen. This is a twist. This is chapter 1, though. There's no build-up for this twist. There is, this new character was introduced. This new character betrayed them immediately. Why were they not on guard? But placing his hand high on his thing would and not putting it on there, and instead, if it was described as placing his hand on one of his placing his hand high on one of the flintlocks that rested on his baldric, change the sentence to placing his hand on one of the 3 flintlocks that rested on his baldric. Okay, now his hand's on a weapon. It's high and it's resting there. And when he goes to get attacked, he can pull the weapon and shoot them. And I can almost guarantee you that that is probably what's going to happen. We're not going to continue it. I have to give this the benefit of the doubt, but within effectively 2 chapters, the author has shown their writing style towards POC characters. It's not one I care for anymore. It's one that I grew up with, mind you. I will say that. But it's one that many people of my skin color struggle with. We glorify and make characters that are POC either one way or another. We don't have a middle ground, right? And it's usually defaulted by gender on top of it. If you're female, you're this glowing caramel skin or ebony goddess character, even when you're wearing rags and stuff like that. If you're male, maybe you're a mermaid-like character that is American, like they describe here, that is genetically predisposed to violence. You get what I was talking about earlier now? It was pretty obvious in the writing with how much they're adding POC characters immediately. Sandra, you've read the books. Do they continue that, or is that just simply a trend in the Deadmans thing? Because if this is just a trend in the Deadmans thing, given the time frame of the 1700s, this is how these people would think. Because this is something that was written in the 1700s. When you look at history, they were described this way quite often, except when they were being described by other people who were POC. Now, some of the writings that were from other people who are POC, you get the real description of what people look like. The dark skin was covered, they were tattered and broken. The dirt and smell was atrocious. Was something that stood out to me, right? I can't remember the author, but it was one of those things that was written in history books. That I was like, it was one of the first times I read somebody that was of a dark skin that wasn't glorified or wasn't like villainized. It was literally just a normal person. And that was from somebody describing like the slave trade era, when slave trade was first happening, which was the 1800s, when slaves were being brought back and forth. So it was so weird to read that. So Sandra is saying it's the time period. This is not a common theme in their other books. So we're going to give the benefit of the doubt. We're going to read this book, and then we will pick another one of their books and go from there. And hope that it is just the time period. But I will say this, Sandra. If I discover that this is a trend in their books, I will very quickly drop the author in its entirety. It's just not something I want to read. That is just because I want to give due diligence and try to find authors and creators that have decided that people are people and not glorify one thing and villainize another just because it's right. But 1700s time period, it makes sense. I think we're good here. Like I said, still got a headache. Hopefully, I can get rid of it. We'll try to do 2 chapters every time, regardless. And we'll talk about the chapters. If anyone could recommend me a highlighter that won't ruin the book, I'll be happy to highlight parts that we might have problems again. So this is Sherilyn Kenyon's Death Doesn't Bargain. I do recommend picking it up, because if there's a difference between sitting here and being nitpicky and reading it just solidly. Like when you read it solidly, it reads okay. It's still clunky. You're still gonna have problems. We're gonna sit here and talk about the problems as we read it. But I do recommend picking it up from the library, giving it a read, and taking a look at it. I would probably recommend getting the first book in the series of the Deadmans. Ow. Okay. We're looking at Deadman's Cross, Deadman Walking. Grab that one. So, Sherilyn Kenyon, grab Deadman Walking. I would recommend that. That way, your brain, when you're reading, if you can do this at least, can autocorrect the clunkiness. You guys probably heard me a couple times like autocorrect in my head out loud. I would suggest doing that. That way, you can go ahead and autocorrect it in your head, and it will read a lot better doing so. But I wanted to experience what Sandra had said, which is you should be able to pick up the book, any book, read it, and jump into the world and decide if this is an author that you're going to enjoy. I'm going to give this author 2 different book series a chance, since I have so many. My kiddo's alarm went off. So I've got some from the Dark Hunters. We're going to read some from the Dark Hunters. We're going to finish this one and judge the author based on those 2 series. I'm hoping that further on in the book it gets a little bit better. But that's just because like there's parts of this that read fantastic. I love some of the quotes, obviously, because I'm going to try to use a couple of them. But I'm not sure I'm going to make videos out of this currently because I don't want to get canceled. I'm just going to say that outright. If I were to make a video from this, I'd have to be very careful about how I decided to make a video about it. And I don't want to get canceled. Like this would be a book if I were to share it, Chris would immediately get to like chapter 1 or 2 and be like, no, You can't make a book. You can't make a video from it. There was oh, do I have it with me right now? I do not have it. Probably look else right. The House of the Scorpion is a book on, and it's a wonderful book. It won several rewards. I loved how it described the people in the book because it does a fantastic job of describing what they look like without glorifying them or victimizing them. Well, they did victimize them, but that's because they were a legitimate victim. So or villainizing them because of their skin color, and it does a wonderful job of highlighting futuristic version of sci-fi version of like the drug trade and whatnot. And if I could remember author, I would recommend this book. The House of the Scorpion by Nancy Farmer. And it is a young adult science fiction. It won several awards. It also might be banned in your area. Just saying that. Look up the author on TV Tropes. Why am I looking up the author on TV? What what part? So I just typed in the author's name in TV Tropes. What are we, like the Dark Hunter novels? What are we looking here? Are we looking for just the author? Like cliffhanger literature? Like what part of it? Are we doing here? The hell? Romance author Sherilyn claims her husband and one of her former assistants hatched a Shakespearean plot to murder her by poison. Holy mother of mackerel. Also, not saying Jesus Christ is part of religion, saying it as an actual curse. Thank you for that. Link in the Discord. So that one, yeah. What are we reading? Oh, as a group of books, Hunter's Note in the series can be broken down as follows: hunters, were hunters, the result an animal. From an animal and a primary deer. A total of 28 books and novelties encompassing the series, along with a companion book. Their perpetual childhood, towing the line of abuse, foundational heroism. All myths are true, and how to Marathon, vampires, what's next? Eternally hungry, eternally thirsty, pain. I'm seeing a lot of tropes. But like when you're writing, the kind of like you don't really have a choice sometimes, especially because like you can't. It's really hard to come up with something original. Hey kiddo. Hi. Everybody now, no matter how abused, misguided, or misanthropic. Oh man! Holy mother of Pearl, they call out a lot of stuff, don't they? I'm pretty sure somebody could do the same thing to us, though. Pretty sure you could. So, like, reading up on that, hey, so correction. This is a trope that the author is guilty of doing throughout their books. That kind of sucks. I'll have to read the books I have. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna finish this. We're gonna finish this one. We're gonna finish it on live. I'm gonna read it on live. We'll go forward from there, and kind of take things as we take them. Nothing is perfect. Just gotta decide where your lines are. It's true, we do. Um, it all depends on like how prevalent it is in their books, though, too. If it's something that is almost nonstop, constant in every book, and like it's like chapter after chapter in every book, it's an issue. If it is this series drives it home because it's that time frame, but the other series are set in a different time frame, it's a little bit more, let's face it, PC. Then great, we'll continue to try to read them. Give the benefit of doubt because tropes exist for a reason, right? And they have very much been writing books for a while now. The question is are there new books still this way, or did they evolve their writing? If they haven't evolved their writing beyond these tropes and beyond describing these characters in these ways that are no longer socially acceptable, unless you are very specific about what time frame that your book exists in, then it's an issue. And I'm not saying that like you can't enjoy what you want to enjoy. Enjoy what you want to enjoy. But don't be blind to the problems that some things may exist. Is the main thing. Trying to teach our kiddos that our entire house is LGBTQ plus. Polyamorous. My kiddos are each their thing that I'm not going to out on live unless they feel comfortable enough, which you guys have probably seen hints here and there with my oldest. And I'm not going to out my spouse who doesn't want to be outed right now. But we're all in that area, and I still get the Harry Potter books. I specifically get the Harry Potter books with the thought that my kids can enjoy them the way I enjoyed them, or at least try to. And we're getting the ones that are illustrated. So we're waiting until they're done. We get them. We try to buy them used, so that JK doesn't get as much money, at least. And then I talk with my kiddos. They're like, well, hey, tell me what you think about this. You see a problem with this? How would you have solved this? Right? I find that should be the way we should discuss books. Like this right here. Like we discussed about how they described the character and how they could have described the character, even within that time set. And it's going to be interesting to see literature evolve over the next 20 to 30 years with these new mindsets evolving from the younger generation that's going to be writing books. And seeing how these books come about and if we're still going to enjoy them or not. I am worried about AI though, because there's a lot of people who are using AI to like double check their books and everything, and then not like going back and reread. But yeah, Also, if you want another book that I would suggest, I'm going to be rereading this. Extravaganza, City of Mask. It's been so long that I don't want to say what the book is about because I'd probably be misremembering it without reading a couple chapters. This particular book has water damage. I am pissed off that my landlord kept letting the basement flood because the basement was a temperature controlled area, which is why I kept my books in it. I even kept them above the water line of where it would flood, and things still caused an issue. At least I can still read them. And there's no mold. Also, you can still save your books if they get mold. You need to like dry them out and then like there's like powdered baking soda and then something else. I can't remember what you can get and put between each of the pages to kill the mold. Anyways, that's it. I'm gonna call it a night. It's an hour and 36 minutes. The last half of this live has just been me like trying to figure out. But I will probably see you guys tomorrow, random time whenever I am up. We'll read. Try to read. Like maybe remind me. Try to read at least 2 chapters if I'm awake. If not, then I will see you the next time I cannot sleep. That is how this series is gonna go. Which I have trouble sleeping a lot, so we are gonna get through this book relatively quickly. Oh, hi. Do you want to say hi to chat before I pop off? Come on. Yeah, come on. Yeah, come on. Stop yelling at me and just come up here. Yeah. Want to say hi to chat? Say hi, Whiskers. Hey, chat, say hi. I'm sure chat will say hi in a few seconds. You know I can't stay here. I gotta go downstairs. I'm not gonna lean back because I gotta go downstairs. The look of anger at me because she knows. Anyways, bye guys. We're gonna wait for you guys to. I'm gonna wait to see your comments about Whiskers and saying hi to Whiskers. There we go. There they come in. They say, "Son, Sandra says hi." Last minute, we got it in here. All right, guys. You guys have a good one. Good night. I hope you guys are able to get some rest, or good morning, whatever it may be for you. If you haven't rested, get some rest. If you haven't had some water, drink some water. And if you need to eat some food, eat some food. Ooh, cherry. All right, I'm gonna go look at